I, in the modern era, have access to Power School. So I knew that that was not necessarily the case, or his polite way to put it would be his definition of good and my definition of good are slightly divergent. But I didn't say anything to him about it. I was like, okay. I just left it at that. And then the next day, I had all three of them, drop them off at their mom's house. Julia and Tyler gave me a big hug, and Riley just got out of the car and walked straight to the house. And I asked him, I was like, hey, Riley, man, come say goodbye. I want to give you a hug. And he looked back at me and then just walked into the house, and that was it for months. No response to a text, no telephone calls. And he actually, other than when he was, essentially I went and picked him up at school, so he was kind of forced to spend time on Monday. That, and then I talked him into going to breakfast on Tuesday. It was about 6 hours in the last year that I've spent with him, the longest period of time. Other than that, there have been times where both Tyler and Julia have been uncomfortable, either about the situation in general, but Tyler, I think, has processed it the best, but he has a very analytical mind. Of the three of them, they're all incredibly smart and capable kids. His mind works, I think, in the most analytical way. Julia's is a little bit more emotional based in her decision making and comfort level. And then Riley, to be honest, I can't crack the nut on that. I don't know if it's a combination of both. I don't know if he's just straight up angry at the world, as a lot of 17-year-old boys are. I get that. I don't know for sure, but it's been different between all three of them, drastically different at times.
Did you feel like obviously divorce sucks all the way around. Like there's no good part about it. Did you feel like they felt like you had left them?
Well, I will disagree with you that divorce sucks all the way around, because
For kids.
I would still disagree with that.
Okay.
Because the environment that they were living in was not healthy.
Fair enough.
And it was full of stress and tension.
Right.
Will they recognize that it actually, those initial steps by physically separating, will they realize at this point in their life that it was probably better for them? I don't know. But I think that they will look back, and I say that based off of conversations I've had with them, because I will have very open conversations with them about it at age-appropriate levels. And I have some guidelines with them. One being, I will not talk negatively about their mom. Even if I completely think that an issue of what had happened was her fault, I won't even touch it. I'll leave that alone. But they agree that that it was like a balloon being popped when it came to the stress. My words, not theirs. So that was an immediate impact, I would say, in the positive side of the house. I think they were more confused than anything, and I did my best to explain. At the bottom line, all I could really explain, or wanted them to understand, was that a legal relationship was changing between myself and their mom, but no relationship would ever change between myself and them. I'll always be their dad. But again, so almost 2 years now, so we're talking a 15-year-old,
11.
Yeah, a 13-year-old, and a 10-year-old at the time. So
Julia being the youngest, do you think she understood that? Intellectually, she's smart enough to understand that, but in her heart, her feelings, did she understand that?
There's probably conflict there. I think she understand, in air quotes, at an age-appropriate level, what they can process. They all have seen a counselor and have spent time talking to a counselor. I have spent time talking to the same counselor, and he has expressed to me that none of them, out of all three, were surprised by what happened. It was not a matter of like, oh, I can't believe this is happening.
Rug just got pulled out from under them.
To a degree it did, because I came home and I left one day. I made the decision to initiate it, and I made the decision to initiate it very succinctly with my future ex-wife, and then I left. And which I don't know how to do it right. It's a point of contention between her and I. She'll say, you did this incorrectly. I'm like, listen, I don't know how to do this. I don't know if you're supposed to write a note to somebody and say, like, hey, in a month, just so you know, we're going to have, I don't know how to do that. I thought that having that conversation and going and sleeping downstairs, not the call. So none of the kids thought it was a surprise. And then again, talking to my family and even the family on the other side, on her side, nobody was surprised by it. And the reality is, looking back on it now, it should have happened, and I think her and I agree on this, it should have happened 5 years ago, if not more. And I think the kids realize that too, but I think they're going to need some more laps around the sun, and they're going to need some experience of their own in relationships for them to truly grasp how and what happened and for why.
It would seem that just like with any other major traumatic event, I mean, because it's
Yep.
you're moving along in life, and all of a sudden, you're not moving on in that same way that you were before. But it would seem like their reaction would also depend on the developmental age that they're at.
And I thought about that too. I'm glad that I waited a little bit longer because they could process it better. But I also think if I had done it when they were much, much younger, would it have been easier for them because they would have had less to process?
Right.
And I don't know the right answer to that.
And then I suppose it also depends on what happens in that period of time.
Yeah.
You know, had you done it 5 years earlier, are there certain events that could have been avoided, or certain,
Yes.
a growing of that tension that could have been avoided?
Yes. There are things that I will look back on in that time period that I will regret for the rest of my life. Things that they either saw or heard. It was rough. It was the correct decision to make, and I have not met anybody who has said anything other than that. And people who saw it from the outside that were like, "Yeah, you're better off." And they mean both of us, not just me.
Yeah.
So